Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to LinkedIn Live with Steve White. I'm so glad you could join us today on this beautiful spring day. Welcome to LinkedIn Live with Steve White. The purpose of this conversation really is my way to pay it forward, to talk to you about your brand, your company, your journey, your path to success, and to share with you some of the experiences I've been able to uh, deliver and develop over the past few years. So today is all about you. And the focus of today's conversation is how do you develop your own brand and then own it? So let me just say that one more time. How do you develop your own brand and then how do you own it? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. In my book, Uncompromising, which came out on March 8th. And for those that have purchased the book, thank you for the support. So please share that with your friends, your colleagues, your family members. And for those who have not purchased the book, I would ask you to consider purchasing it. You can find it wherever you buy your books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you purchase your books. Please go purchase the book. And if you just want to follow me on social media, go to my website, stevewhitespeaks.com. All of the information around how you can follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of that information. I think you'll find it helpful. So go to my website, stevewhitespeaks.com. It'll give you all the information you need on how to follow me, how to learn more about the book. There's actually some excerpts on the book there that you can check it out, and hopefully you'll find it very, very interesting. So again, welcome to the June edition of LinkedIn Live with Steve White. Let's jump right into it. Let's jump right into how do you develop your own brand and then how do you own it as you move forward. So I want to talk about it from two perspectives, the what and the how. So let's start with the what. Before you can even begin the journey of developing your own brand and then owning it, you have to decide. What is going to be your brand? What is it that you're going to stand for? When folks are behind closed doors, what are they saying about you and your company? We talk a lot about, particularly in my case, I don't work for Comcast. I work for Steve White Incorporated. Comcast purchases my services, and I'm so excited about that. But I work for Steve White Incorporated, and you work for You Incorporated. And men and women are going to purchase your services and your products. So it's very important. They know exactly what they're buying. They know exactly what you stand for. So as we move forward. So let's first of all start with what? Deciding what is your brand. What is your purpose? What is your why? What is your brand? So let me just give you an idea. For my brand that I've developed over the last handful of years is achieving results, achieving and delivering results. And how I go about doing that as I establish my brand was creating an aligned and focused team supported by a culture of teamwork and intense people development. Let me say that one more time. My brand is all about delivering exceptional results. Sometimes you fail, you don't always succeed, but having a clear idea of what it is you stand for, what is your brand, what can people count on you for, how do you create value for your company and your employer is very important. And the way I've tried to do that was through a very focused culture that is aligned and focused and committed, supported by intense people development, and all built around teamwork. So your ability to communicate that in an effective way to your teammates, to the men and women that work for you, to your bosses, is the first step in achieving sustainable success. So the first step in developing and owning your brand, you have to truly know what it is you stand for. So step one, decide what it is that you stand for. Now let's talk about the how. Once you develop your brand, once you've identified what it is you want to stand for, so when your career is over, people can still recite back to you and others what you were about, what you stood for. Let's talk about how do you go do it. I'm going to use a word called commitment. We're going to talk about 3 ways on how you make it happen. Number 1 is commitment. Number 2 is measurement. And number 3 is accountability. Those are the 3 ways. Once you've decided what your brand stands for, here are the 3 ways that you nurture it, you feed it, so it becomes a reality and not something on a piece of paper, but something that's actually living, breathing, and people know you for these things. Everything starts with commitment. And there are 4 ways to go about doing it. The first is develop your own kitchen cabinet of truth tellers that will give you an honest assessment of how you're progressing against your brand development. Having those regular checkpoints, having someone giving you honest feedback. Sometimes they're people on your team, sometimes your peers, maybe it's even your boss, or maybe it's someone outside the company, and that's okay. But you need someone who understands what it is you're trying to accomplish, what is your brand, and then what are the steps you're taking to get there, and having a group of men and women that can give you very, very good, honest feedback. I call it my kitchen cabinet. I have several people on my team that work with me, that don't work with me, that don't even work in our industry, that I can regularly go to check in to see how I'm progressing. Number 2, as part of commitment, is you gotta refine and define and really invest in your craft. For example, what books are you reading? Have you identified books that you can read, lectures, TED Talks, whatever it might be? What's going to assist you in developing your brand as you move forward? Because none of us come into this with a clear idea of exactly how to do it and all the skills. So this is a lifelong journey as you develop your skill set, as you move forward in building your brand. So finding ways to study. There was a quote by Bill Gates that said, if you really want to become really good at something, find 12 really good books, read 1 book a month. Over the course of the year, you will really develop your craft. So whether it's books, whether it's TED Talks, whether it's lectures, surrounding yourself with people that are very good in this area that you're trying to develop your brand is very, very clear. And then number 3, be prepared to make trade-offs and sacrifices. Because once you develop your brand, it will start to give you a guidepost of how you should spend your time, what jobs you should take, because there will be some very attractive jobs on the surface, but if they don't fit your brand and what you're trying to do, you've got to be careful. For example, in my case, achieving results for me was all about being around the P&L. So if there was a job being offered to me that did not have a very clear measuring stick, that did not have the P&L tied to it, I shied away from it, not because they weren't good jobs, they just didn't feed my brand and what I was trying to accomplish in a way that I could create value for my company and the company that has hired me. So be very, very careful about that. And then number 4 is be very disciplined around which jobs you take. So let's kind of recap that. Commitment is all about 4 parts. Number 1, who's in your kitchen cabinet that can give you honest feedback on where you are and where you stand. Number 2, how are you developing your craft? Are you doing it through reading books? Are you doing it through TED Talks? Are you doing it going through training programs or lectures? Whatever it might be a mix of all of that. But it's very important that you develop and focus your craft. For me, leading teams was all about, for me, finding as many good books as I can read. And I've read them on 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Jack Welch, Winning from the Gut. So I try to find ways that I can invest in myself. Number 3, be ready to make trade-offs, because once you decide where you're going, that means you have to say no to certain things. And you have to be committed to this process, because there will be certain things that look good on the surface, that look good in the short term. You have to be careful that you don't fall into that trap. And then number 4, be ready to walk away from jobs, things, people that don't help you build your brand. And sometimes those are very difficult decisions to make. Okay, so we talked about the what, decide what is my brand, what is it that I'm standing for. Now let's talk about the how. The first part of how is commitment. And we talked about 4 critical things that are important when you're talking about your commitment. Relative to the how, the next one is what I call measurement. What is your scorecard that will give you a good idea of how you're progressing toward your brand? Now, we talked about my purpose, my why, my brand. It was all about achieving results. So in my case, the profit and loss statement, how many subscribers we were adding, that was visible for everyone to see, including myself. So I could clearly measure how we were doing relative to achieving results. And then on the how, we talked about doing it through an aligned team, supported by a very strong culture. And so we developed pulse surveys where every other month we would do a pulse survey with our employees to see how we were doing. Were they aligned? Were they focused? Did they have a clear idea of what we needed from them? So those were my ways of really developing a measuring stick that gives me a good idea if we're on the right track and if we need to adjust or move things around midstream. So very, very important that you have a measurement tool that will give you some sense of how you're doing and how you're progressing against your brain. So it's very, very important. Now, I don't want to confuse that with the kitchen cabinet. That's subjective feedback, and that's important, but the measurement is hard data that in a conversation with your boss or your peers, you can talk intelligently about the progress you're making in developing your brand with hard facts and results. That's very, very important as you go forward. And then the final piece is accountability relative to on the how. How starts with commitment, measurement, and accountability. You might say, well, Steve, measurement and accountability are similar. No, they're not. Measurement gives you a sense of how you're doing, but accountability is about communicating regularly and often what is it you're trying to accomplish. See, when you put yourself out there and you highlight what you're standing for everyone to hear, you have now put an accountability X on your back, which is a good thing because now people clearly know what you stand for. They know what you're about. They know what you're trying to accomplish. And along the way, they will give you feedback, honest feedback outside of your kitchen cabinet. You'll start to get regular feedback on how you're doing and how you're progressing. So be very clear about what you stand for. Now let's go back to my purpose and why, which is about achieving results. And the way we do that is through a very aligned and focused and committed organization supported by a culture that's built on teamwork and intense people development. If I said that one time, I said it a million times. And you know what happens? The more I talk about it, employees would give me feedback to say, yes, Steve, I believe that. I see that. But also when it was not happening in a part of our organization, we created this funnel where we could get feedback where maybe we were falling short. Sometimes it's uncomfortable when you put it out there and people come back and say, you're not living those values. But it's critical that you have that perspective from all different parts of the organization that'll give you some sense if you're heading in the right direction. So as we talk about how you develop your own brand and then own it is very important. And let's just quickly recap. First of all, you got to decide what is your brand? What is it that you stand for? And then we talked about the how, and there are 3 ways from a how perspective. 1 is commitment. Number 2 is measurement. And number 3 is accountability. So as you go on your journey, I hope this conversation has been helpful for you as you go on your journey, as you develop and own your brand, and you set a pathway of success for you and your individual company. And now there are people standing in line trying to purchase your services. So I wish you well. Thank you for joining this month's LinkedIn Live with Steve White. Again, thank you for joining. Thank you for support of the book. Thank you for supporting our website and following me on social media. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, send me a note. If you think there are ways we can make this even more impactful, send me a note as well. All feedback is welcome. Good, positive, and constructive. Send it our way. Have a great day, and I'll see you the next time.